The final international break is over, so we debate the best doublers, discuss if Haaland and Rashford will be fit to return, and ask what to do with our Arsenal assets who only have one game.
Your country, especially for Maddison, I think we've been waiting a very long time for that chance to do well. I think it boosts your confidence. You've got that momentum. I think you're really eager then to, when you go back with your club and play the next league game, to show like, this is me, an England international. So I'm sure Maddison, who has two decent games, really. You think Crystal Palace away and Aston Villa at home, to just like show on the pitch with Leicester all the good things that we saw with England in midweek. So for me, Maddison it could be a very clever pick.
Oh, you're just saying that because I brought him in last week, aren't you?
You brought him because we told you to. We were like, me and Sam were just like, yeah, Maddison is great. And then we know that you brought him in.
The other thing I'd say about James Maddison, though, if you look at him over the last 4 matches, he's had 26 shot involvements. That's more than any other midfielder in the game. So that divides up to being 13 chances created for his teammates and 13 shots that he's had himself. So when you're looking for a midfielder, I think you are looking for somebody that is leading the play at their team, bit of a kind of talismanic impact there, with nice set of fixtures that not only are a nice set of fixtures for 29, because if you've already, like Jules, used your wild card, these have got to be players that kind of get you more long-term as well. And Maddison kind of ticks all of those boxes.
And also Jason Steele. Remember, we've mentioned him in the last few shows. But again, Brentford, Bournemouth for Brighton. Thomas mentioned already some of the midfielders, Mitoma, Marsh, McAllister. Sam mentioned, let's be careful. Let's just, again, make sure that people check when Mitoma was back from his international break, when was McAllister back as well. But Jason Steele, right now, and no pun intended, is still considering his price and knowing, it's true, knowing that he will start those 2 games that look very good on paper, certainly for Brighton.
Are you looking at anyone else at Brighton, Tom? Because we discussed it on last week's podcast, what we went through and we created our wildcard teams. We were saying there's so many options in midfield, then there's options in defence, and as Jules has just said there's a good goalkeeper there that's at a cheap price too.
Yeah, well, me personally, I've got a Stupenant, so it's kind of like hoping he'll get both games in. And then alongside that, it's just trying to pick the right midfielder, because I feel like everyone's got different opinions. There's 3 very popular ones, and I think you can't really go wrong, but there's definitely going to be the right picks at the end of the week.
Sam, there's some really interesting decisions to be made in midfield, isn't there? Because there's some really nice doublers, the ones that we've mentioned at Brighton, at Leicester, if Marcus Rashford is fit. Lots of people own him, but then we have also got these Arsenal midfielders thrown in there. So although there's some really good doublers in there, there's also some really good single players there. There's a lot of decisions. That's where my main headaches lie, actually, which midfielders to actually play.
Totally agree with you, Kelly. I think that for me is one of my big decision points this week is, what do I do about my 2 Arsenal midfielders? The Martinelli and Saka situation is really difficult, because in some ways you think, am I limiting myself by just having a player that plays once? But you do know with Martinelli and Saka that they are likely to return in that game where they play once. Whereas we've got some others who are doubts in terms of their injuries, or their doubts in terms of how many minutes they might get in the first game. So I think you have to balance it quite carefully. For me, I think it would be a mistake to sell your Arsenal assets. I think they'll punish you, because they can easily return between now and game week 38. And I think, they have got the biggest thing to fight for out of all of these clubs and all of these players we are talking about. Arsenal have the biggest thing to fight for right now in the Premier League title. So these players are going to want to kick on and really kind of extend their lead over Manchester City. I don't think you want to be selling them.
Should we be worried at all, Jules, about the return of Gabriel Jesus and how that's going to affect the likes of Martinelli?
Maybe. We talked about it a little bit before, although the dynamic right now, like Sam was saying, is so good for Trossard, who, by the way, played really well with Belgium in the first game, but also in the second game when he came on. Martinelli and Saka have been outstanding in the last few games too, decisive, full of energy. So you would think that right now, Arteta can obviously start Gabriel Jesus against Leeds on Saturday, but it looks like he's still a bit behind that front 3 of Trossard, Saka and Martinelli. So you're okay. But yeah, there will be a point where Arteta might feel like Gabriel Jesus can bring something from the start. So I guess they can all play together, maybe, but it's more likely that it will be 3 out of those 4 at some point who will start. So I think for now you're okay. If you, even with Jesus coming back, if you have Martinelli or Saka, Odegaard, Trossard, I think you should be okay for this weekend. After that, I think, yeah, there will be a risk that at some point Gabriel Jesus comes back in as a starter, even if it's just for the odd game there, and then that means Trossard, Martinelli or Saka ends up on the bench at the start of the game.
Whilst I think that, you keep your Arsenal midfielders for now, because I tend to agree with Jules. I think Jesus is going to be kind of eased back in slowly and you'll still get minutes from the rest of the players across the Arsenal team. I think the Arsenal defence is maybe the thing that I would look to move out, because there are so many really nice double game week defenders that you could invest in this week. So I think if you've got, Saliba, who we've already mentioned, or Gabriel, or, Zinchenko, one of the Arsenal defenders, you could move them on and you could look towards the likes of Ben Chilwell, who has been phenomenal for Chelsea over the last 3 weeks. He's got 19 points in the last 3 game weeks. That's more than anyone else at Chelsea, apart from Kai Havertz, who he's level with, but been really brilliant. Luke Shaw, who's been involved in 13 shots across the previous 4 matches. That's 9 chances created and 4 shots of his own. So I think if you've got an Arsenal defender, you can afford to lose them in favour of a double game week defender. But I think I'd hold my midfielders.
Tom, you are someone that is probably going to have to part company with an Arsenal defender this week. You've actually got a pretty good defence otherwise in having Luke Shaw, Estupiñán, Emerson and Ream. Who would you, if you were to get rid of Saliba, who would be your standout pick to replace him with?
I think with the Saliba definitely coming out of the team, it seems as though I'm just going to have to pick someone from someone who I expect to pick up a couple clean sheets. I think Chelsea, obviously, very good candidate for that. And despite not always knowing who they're going to play, I think Chilwell's a very good option, like's been said. Or maybe going elsewhere, maybe picking up someone from West Ham. I do already have Emerson, but I'm not convinced in his starting ability constantly, but I like the fact they've got Southampton at home, Newcastle at home. I do think there's points there. Yeah,
and there's a few standout options in defence, Sam. It feels like now we're going to go through positioning, which does actually make sense. Ben Chilwell, is he the standout option from Chelsea?
Yeah, I think Chilwell is the right Chelsea defender. I've got Badiashile. I kind of wonder whether I've done the wrong thing there. He seems to be playing every other game, which worries me quite a lot, because obviously he got the start against Everton in 28, which then concerns me about whether he's going to play in game week 29 or how many minutes he's going to play in 29. So I think if you are going Chelsea, it's Chilwell, because I don't think we can guarantee Reece James's minutes right now, given that he withdrew from the England squad. So we're going to have to really wait and see what Potter's got to say in his press conferences if you are a Reece James owner. But I think if you're just trying to invest in Chelsea and you want a defender, then it's Chilwell.
Any other defenders catching your eye, Jules?
Luke Shaw, again, he's been outstanding all season long, whether he plays a centre-back or left-back. Sam mentioned some of his stats in terms of shot that he takes, but the delivery, crosses, set pieces, he's on it as well, in terms of corners, wide free kicks, for example. So considering how good United have also been, like Casemiro in the air on set pieces, then I think Shaw is a must. Newcastle away is a tough first game in his double game week. We've said that. Of course, it's not going to be easy, but you could also see United defending well in that game. And then they play Brentford at home at Old Trafford, which again is going to be a tough game. So it's not easy for United, that the double fixture in this game week. But I think Shaw, really, if you're looking for a defender, is a must-have, like Trippier, like Chilwell.
The one thing I will say is, if you don't have a free hitch hit remaining, and you're therefore not just thinking about 29, but you're thinking ahead to 32 and the blank, where a lot of people will use their free hit, then a Liverpool defender might be an answer to a question that you have, because they're going to double in 29. Now, yes, we've already mentioned it's a difficult double, and maybe we don't see clean sheets in there against Chelsea and Man City. But they do play in game week 32 and they do double again in game week 34. So Liverpool do kind of solve many problems for us as FPL managers. So maybe if you've got the budget, going for Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold, or maybe even having a little look at Virgil van Dijk if you don't have the budget for those other two, might just be the way that you can kind of invest in a team that's going to play twice. There's some attacking threat there from those defenders, and that solves you problems further down the line.
Did you sell Robertson in the end, Sam?
I did, yeah. and I don't know whether I regret it or not. It's one of those difficult ones, I think, with the Liverpool defence, because they've actually been really solid defensively over the last few weeks. You know, they've been keeping clean sheets, but I didn't see the clean sheets this week. And when that double game week was announced in 34 and after the FA Cup had panned out and it was clear that Liverpool were going to have a fixture in 32, I kind of slightly regretted my decision to sell Robertson. So given I'm going to be wildcarding next week, I'll probably look to bring in a Liverpool defender then to benefit from 32 and 34. But I can see the benefits of doing it this week if you are in need of a defender.
Tom, I also noticed